Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's modern Excel webinar on Get and Transform data using Power Query in Excel for Mac. My name is Miguel Escobar. I'm going to be your presenter today. Hope that you're comfortable with Excel because we're going to be seeing a lot of it today. And we're going to be seeing it both in Windows and in Mac. So we're just simply going to get started right now. My name is Miguel Escobar. I'm an author and speaker. I have several blogs, a YouTube channel. I speak at conferences. I'm actually based in Panama, so if you've ever visited Panama, I do welcome you. If you haven't visited Panama yet, it's a pretty amazing country. I am an Excel guy that is now more into Power BI, and I'm also the founder of these two projects. One of them called Power Solutions, and the other one called Power Query Training. I am an Excel, or was at the time an Excel MVP, now on a data platform MVP. I'm also a Microsoft certified professional, Microsoft certified trainer, and you can see some of the books that I've written or published in the past few years. If you ever want to get in touch with me, you can do so on LinkedIn or Twitter. The handle is Escobar Miguel and 90. Also, if you want to see my blog, it's powersolutions.co/blog. So we're going to get started. And today's topic is all about having Power Query in Excel for Mac, which is pretty new. This is something that we just got just a few months ago here in 2019. So for today's agenda, we're going to try to tackle these questions. We have what is Power Query, why Power Query, why Power Query in Excel for Mac, and how do I use this? So what can I actually get out of Power Query in Excel for Mac? So I'm going to start with this common scenario, and this is all about something called data wrangling. So for most Excel users that work with data, we work with data that is in a really raw state, really raw shape. And the whole idea is that we take that data and we do some magic. Something magic happens here, and it gets transformed into this final table, this clean looking table that we need for analysis. The reality is that it's not really magic what happens in the middle. It's just you, just doing an amazing work with the tools that you have. And your toolkit is usually just Excel formulas, VBA, third-party tools, or even creating your own user-defined functions. It's not really magic. It's just you being a really amazing guy, a really amazing person when it comes to data wrangling. So data wrangling, in a nutshell, it looks like you're actually carrying the whole weight of the data on top of your head. So it's a really heavy box of data that you're actually carrying, and you're trying to just move it so it can actually be taken into consideration for analysis. What it feels more like you're actually a Titan. So you're Prometheus trying to hold the full weight of the world over your shoulders. And what you actually need is a tool to help you leverage that data and carry it and just transform it and transport it with ease. And that tool is Power Query. So what is Power Query exactly? It is a tool for data preparation, data wrangling, and a tool that helps you make magic with your data. It is currently found in the whole Power Platform, except for Power Virtual Agents. It is also found in SQL Server, in Integration Services, Analysis Services. You can find it in National Data Factory, and of course, inside of Excel. It's pretty much everywhere nowadays. And it is amazing at combining data, merging data, append data, consolidate data, transpose, pivot, and pivot. Anything that you can think of that requires any sort of data preparation or data wrangling, that's where Power Query shines. So what does Power Query actually do? So Power Query does what's called the ETL process, or the extract, transform, and load. So it can extract data from virtually anywhere. There are dozens of connectors and more being added even on a monthly basis. You can transform this data that you extract in a logical sequence. So you can implement your own logic and then get exactly the table that you need. And then as the last step, of course, you can load that table into Excel as either a new table or into your data model. So we know what Power Query is at this point, what conceptually it does, but why it's so good, what makes it stand out. And I've actually created the simple chart or the simple diagram to give you an idea of the top 6 reasons why Power Query is the best data preparation to date for the business user. So the first one is the ease of use. It is so intuitive. I really encourage you to try it if you haven't tried it. It has one of the best user interfaces for a business user. Then it comes how practical it actually is. It is created from the ground up for the business user. It is backwards compatible, so everything that you create nowadays will work later on. And if you actually have, for example, an Excel 2016 or Office 365, and you create some content and send it back to someone with Excel 2010 or Excel 2013, still going to work most of the cases. It is rich in features. New features and connector are added almost constantly on a monthly basis in Power BI and Excel all the time. So it's like you're actually having Christmas. We're pre-cross Christmas, but with Power Query, it's like you're actually on Christmas every single month. So that's pretty cool. It has a really easy to learn language. It's called M. Pretty easy to actually get it. It is different from Excel. It is different from most of the languages that you find within Excel. But once you actually get it, it is really easy. And of course, it is scalable. The solution that you actually create here in Excel can later be upgraded, or you can actually transport it or port it to Power BI, or perhaps to SQL Server Analysis Services or integration services. It is completely up to you. With that being said, now we're going to go into the action. So we're going to simply do a fight here between Power Query and bad data. So we're going to go right into the action, and I'm going to show you my screen right now. So I'm actually on Mac. I'm not a Mac user that much. I commonly use it just for audio production. So that's basically what I do. My free time. But now I'm gonna go back to Windows. So this is the Windows instance that I have, and I have this 2 files. The scenario is this one. I have a table of projects. These are all of the projects that I have, and I want to have a simple table that will join this 2. So this table, which is the projects, and then the budgets for each of them. So I can create a unique table that I will later use for this form. So in this form, I will have this simple dropdown that will give me the projects that have a budget approved. So if I go back, you'll see that I have this column that says approved, and not every single project plan, or budget plan, was actually approved. So I'm going to be connecting to these 2 files, create what's going to be basically a consolidated table. So I'm going to show you how that looks like from here. So this is the final table that I'm actually trying to get. I'm going to be creating that with Power Query so I can use it for this simple form. And the whole idea is that this form is just so you can use it with the budget form here. It gives you what is the budget for that specific project. It's going to be created by, in this case, going to be Bruce Wayne from Wayne Enterprises. And you see here line by line of what actually is going to be basically budgeted for that specific project. So the cool thing about this one is that if you actually change here, it updates the budget available. So you're always going to look out if you're actually on target or not, or really off. So we're going to start with creating that table that will have just the projects that are uh, approved, and also with the amount for the project and the project date and all the other info that we can potentially have. So I'm just going to go here. Let's go into Excel. I'm going to create a new blank workbook. And in this case, I'm going to have to close this two. This one and this one. There we go. So new book. I'm in Excel 365 or Office 365. So I'm going to go here and click on data. Go to get data from file, from text, CSV. And I'm going to be looking for that specific file. So I'm going to go with Power Solutions. There we go. So for webinar, there we go. So I do have those two. So budget and projects. I'm going to click on projects, click on import. So this is the first window that I see when I connect to the file projects. So I don't want to load it immediately. I do want to do some transformations. So I'm going to click here where it says transform data. There we go. So what's going to happen is that it's going to take me to this Power Query editor where I can just do the transformations. So right now, I really don't have to do that, like any transformations whatsoever. So I'm just going to click on new source right within the Power Query editor. I'm going to import the other CSV file, which is the budget. So click on import. There you go. And now on import, I have the same experience. So it's always going to be the standard for the CSVs or the text files. Just get that window. Usually recommended that you click on transform data so you can actually see it. In this case, we have the budget. So right here, we have the budget, and on top, we have the project. So I'm just going to right click on budget, and I'm going to create a reference from that budget. The whole idea is that I'm going to be creating a third query that will be my output. And the whole idea is that we use that so it's easier for us to trace it down or to see the history of the changes. So with this, with the budget, I just want to take a look at the ones that are actually approved. So those are the ones that I'm actually interested in. After this, I have the project ID. So I could potentially do an XLOOKUP, basically, but in Power Query terms, to get the data from the other table, from the projects table. To make that happen, all I have to do is click on Merge Queries, and I'm going to be merging the existing table or the actual table, the current table that we have selected, and I'm going to be doing the merge or the XLOOKUP or the VLOOKUP using the project ID column. The project ID with ID using what is called a left outer, which is going to give me or yield the same results as a VLOOKUP, false. Click on OK, and it gives me this new column called projects, which is the name of the table that we were doing the merge with. And within that table, we see that we have some values. So you're going to see down below a preview of that value. Instead of clicking on this table value, which appears to have a color, like a hyperlink, instead of clicking on that, you click on this double opposite arrows. And in here, I'm going to simply select the project name and the project date. And we go with this. So we now have the project name, project date, the budget, the period, all in one. The reality is that I really don't need that much. So I only need, for example, the name, the project name, the budget, the period, and that's pretty much it. Perhaps the project date as well. So I'll select those. I just hold the Control key, select each of the columns that I want to keep, and then right-click any of them and select the remove other columns. And there we go. So I'm going to rename this query to be output. And what cool thing about Power Query is that it now gives you this query dependencies view, so you can see how everything is being tied together, or how everything is really looking like. It says here that you're connecting to a file. This icon tells me that it is a flat file. It can be a CSV. In this case, yes, it is a CSV. I'm creating this query that is called projects, which is giving me a table. So that's why I see this icon. On this one, it's pretty much the same. It's just that I'm connecting to the budget CSV file and getting this budget table. And then I'm joining those two, doing the merge and creating this output. Really simple, really straightforward. I'm going to click on close. And one thing here is that if you just hit close and load, it will give you this experience where it's simply just gonna load all of the data into new sheets as new tables. So those three have been created on each of the sheets that I have. One cool thing about this right here is that you can just click on delete because we really don't need the others. And this, now that has been deleted, has been transformed into a connection only query. So we're not loading this into a new table in Excel. We just simply load right now the output and the projects. The projects, we don't really need it either way. So we're going to do the same and just delete that. And it's going to transform that, see how it changes from 6 rows loaded to connection only. There we go. So that's the query that we need. It has everything that we possibly want, and we're creating this within Windows. But the whole idea is that anyone with either Windows or Mac can actually use this query, or can take advantage of this query, which is going to be used later on for the form. So I'm going to go to the form, and this is a form. The whole idea is that you can update the CSV files. You can just simply right-click here and do refresh. In this case, it's giving me an error, and that's a good, yeah, let's do that. So in this case, it's giving me an error, and the whole idea is that whenever you get any type of data source errors, the supplied file path must be a valid absolute path. In this cases, what you need to do is click on data source settings and check right here on data sources in current workbook if they are actually here. In this case, it's telling me that some data sources may not be listed because of hand authored queries. So it's telling me that it is referring some queries to a file path that I'm not able to see on that specific data source settings window. So I can jump into the Power Query editor, go into those source steps of those files, and just click on this gear icon. And this gear icon is pure gold. It's going to give you the ability to reconfigure that specific step. So whenever you have any type of corrections or modifications that you need to make to your code or your steps in Power Query, that's where you actually want to make those changes. So I click on browse. This is for the budget. So I just simply select the budget. There we go. On projects, I'm going to just do the same. This is the cool thing. Applied steps, you can just go back in time and see how everything goes together. It's like stop motion, but in data. So you click projects, click import. Okay, and you actually see it. So the whole idea again is that you can refresh this at any given moment, and you will always get the latest data. So if tomorrow new projects, new budgets for projects have been approved, then it will actually show here. If anything changes, it will just show up after you do the refresh. And then you're gonna be able to just go here and select. You see that everything's just gonna update and get data from that table that we just imported. Now, imagine that we do have a user, someone's trying to use the same form in Excel for Mac. So in that case, I'm just gonna close this and I'm gonna go back to Mac. Give me just 1 second. There we go. I'm gonna go back into my Mac. I have this right here. And if I try doing this same operation right here, so if I try, for example, going into data and click on refresh on my Excel format for that file that we just created, it's going to give me the same error that we just saw. The supplied file path must be a valid absolute path. That's because the files that I'm pointing in my original file that was creating Windows was pointing at a file path that was only valid in my Excel, in my Windows computer. So now that I'm on my Mac computer, it's simply not giving me anything. So it's just giving me an error. To change the file path here, we do have a couple of options. The first one is that you go into connections, and you're going to see all of the connections that we have here. Is a different experience to the one that we have in data source settings, but this is the more traditional way that we have in Excel. Here on query budget, we can click on change file path. On query output, we do not have the option to select the change file path, but in the projects we do. So we go here, change file path, and then we just simply search for it. So that is for the budget. So we simply select the budget, the data. For the projects, we're going to do the same. The projects. And just like that, we change the file path of those two connections. I hit close. I can now hit refresh, and it's just simply going to work. I'm not even going to see it because it runs so fast, but it's actually working. And I can just go here and just keep working like nothing. All I had to do was a minor tweak at the very first time that I'm actually using this form. But the whole idea is that you have your own copy of this form and you can just continue using it whenever you actually need to. So the other way that you can interact with Power Query within Excel for Mac is that you can use VBA. So in Excel for Mac, we don't have the user interface right now, but we do have the full-blown engine behind the scenes. So as long as we create our queries within Excel for Windows, and then push it to or send that file over to here in Mac, it should potentially work. We do have some limitations in terms of the connectors that we have available. I believe that we only have flat files, JSON files, and XMLs. But in the long run, I can expect, and this has happened with other integrations of Power Query, that more connectors will be added to the mix. I'm really excited about the ones for SharePoint or OneDrive, because in that sense, you wouldn't have to actually change the file path at all. It will always be pointing to the SharePoint URL, so you wouldn't have to worry about that specific issue. You only need to make sure that you have the credentials so you can log into SharePoint, for example, and you should be good to go. So we're gonna go now with how you can use VBA. I'll be completely honest with you. I barely know any VBA. I was actually more of an Excel formula guys and pivot tables. So I'm really don't have the best knowledge of what VBA is, but I was sent by one of the program managers behind Excel for Mac a really good code that will help me to take advantage of VBA and Power Query inside of Excel for Mac. So I'm gonna open the other one that I have, which I believe is this one. Yeah. There we go. So this is the other one. It's opening. And this is the macro version or the Excel workbook with macros enabled. I'm going to show you the Vba code. So cancel here, Visual Basic. He was kind enough to actually add some comments so I can understand what's going on. But we have two pieces of code. The first one is actually a way to get all the queries that we have in this current workbook. And the second one is a way to update the query that we have inside of this workbook with a new custom code. And that code is going to be written in M. So I'm not going to try to actually go through the code. In case you actually want to look at this workbook, it will be available to you. So we're going to make sure that you have a link so you can download this. So here, I'm just going to go into macros. I'm going to click on get queries, click on run, and it creates a new sheet where I have a table or basically a range where I see the query and then I see the formula. So the query, for example, budget, this is the code for it. And as you can see here, it's actually pointing to, in this file, is pointing to the incorrect file path. This file path that you see here, where it says file contents, and then you see the quotes, C / users, Miguel Escobar, Car Solutions, all that, that is a file path on Windows. That is not on Mac. Same thing happens with this one for projects. So if I try to simply do a refresh on this specific version of the workbook, on the Excel version or the XLSM or the macro enabled version, it's going to give me this error. This supplied file path must be a valid absolute path. So it doesn't really have the correct path. Good enough or lucky enough, I actually have this path right here, which is the one that I should be using in Mac. So I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to go into this line of the code and I'm just going to replace it. So let's replace the previous one, just this one, with the new one. Just like that. So I think that I totally forgot about that one. So let's go with this one because we also need the name of the file. There we go. And now that we actually have the correct file path to that file, I can just go back into the developer, go into the macro. I have to have the selected cell to be the formula, and it has to be in this format that we see here. And we click on run. It's going to look into this cell, look at the code, then look at the left cell. It's going to look that it has the name of budget. So it's going to try to replace the code of the budget query with this new code. And I'm just going to place the old code on the right. So I'm going to click on run so you can actually see it. Update query. So we're going to be updating the budget query with this new formula, with this new code. The previous query formula will be put in the next column, so on column C, and the query will be updated. So click OK, and it just happened. Same thing, I'm gonna be doing it here on the projects. Just like that, just gonna simply paste it here. I'm gonna run the query again, but now for the projects, the update, select the query, click on run. Yeah, let's go. There we go. So we have the old query and we got the new query. If we go now to, let's go with anywhere. So let's go with data. So you can refresh. We're not even going to notice it, but it's simply just running in the background and it works. So I can unhide so you can see this table. Right click, refresh, no more errors. That's the good thing. So that's how we work with Excel for Mac or Power Query in Excel for Mac. If you want to do anything that has to do with Power Query at all, you can either use VBA to create new queries, or we can simply use the Excel in Windows, create the queries there, and then just use them. If we need to rechange the file paths, we can do so here in Power Query inside of Mac. But we can definitely do it here in Excel for Mac if we actually need to, with either the connections to change the file path or with VBA here. Again, this Vba code, you can get it. Just we're gonna make sure that you have the URL to download these files. But with this Vba code, all you need to do is put the code that you wanna replace with in this query. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be just one minor change. It can be a really big change, and then we can do it just like that. So in this case, if I wanted to, so I'm gonna go with let's output. So I'm just gonna create my own query. I'm just gonna say, okay, so here I'm just gonna rename all of this and write my own M code. So I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna put my list. So I'm creating my own query here and saying create a list that goes from 1 to 20. And then I say that that's going to be the output. So now I'm going to run that query again, or that macro update selected query. They can run. There we go. And when I go back to my data, if I hit refresh, notice that it completely changed the query. So it's now a list of the numbers 1 through 20. Pretty cool. Now, if I want to go back to where I was, I can just go here, copy and paste it, run that macro again. So let's go with developer, sorry, macros, and click on update selected query. Let's go again. There we go. Click on my data, hit the refresh, and there you go. So with that being said, I'm gonna go back into the presentation. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about what other resources we have for Power Query and pretty much anything that has to do with data preparation. So if you want to learn more about Power Query, there's simply no other place than Power Query training. So you can find a book in there. We also have a free book or ebook that you can download. We have free courses. We also have paid courses. Anything that you can possibly think of, we probably have it in that site. So just make sure that you go into www.powerquery.training. With that being said, we can move forward to the questions. Do we have any questions in the queue? Okay, so we don't have any questions right now. So I'm just gonna give you guys this site. If you ever want to get in touch with me, you can also reach to me or reach me through the contact form here. But we're gonna make sure that you have the URL to download these files. And I really hope that you enjoyed this session. Thank you for joining us and have a good day, evening, or afternoon. Bye.